Armors. The bread and butter of any hell type, be it the rating, the passive, or the simple drip factor. It's the glue that puts everything together to make a loadout. Divided into 3 categories, armors are pretty straightforward in Helldivers too. Starting with light armors, of which speed is the name. While they have the lowest armor rating in the game, they make up for it with speed and stamina regen, allowing you to move around faster than others. Medium armors, my beloved, act as a middle ground between protection and speed, offering a bigger armor rating, but still not reaching the speed capabilities of their light counterparts. And lastly, heavy armors, of which speed is not the name in the slightest, offering the least amount of speed and stamina regen, but compensating with pure size, aka the highest armor ratings in the game. Overall, I believe all these armors fulfill the roles pretty well, and each one has their place in gameplay. However, for a long time now, one of them has been overshadowed by the rest. While light armors reign supreme, heavy armor doesn't see much use across the war. Regardless, heavy armor does have its defenders who serve by the path of the tank, and I am one of them. Mostly. So today, I want to make my case for the heavy armor, and why I think they are far more viable than people think. First up, let's talk numbers. Generally, passives always come with a set of light, medium and heavy armor, therefore we'll be mainly focusing on the stats themselves, aka armor rating, speed and stamina regen. Light armors hover around the armor rating of 50. Some go ever so slightly higher, the highest being 100 thanks to the extra padding passive. For speed, they don't go any higher than 550, and in fact the armors that do variate from this go lower. Same goes for stamina regen, reaching a maximum of 125 with lower variations. Medium armors have armor ratings of around 100, with slight variations up to 150, a speed of 500 with a single exception, and a stamina regen of 100, with the exact same exception. Heavy armors stay at a crisp 150 armor rating, with a single exception reaching up to 200, a speed of 450, and a stamina regen of 50, with 0 exceptions on both of them. Now that the numbers are all laid out, what's the issue? Why is heavy armor not used a whole lot in the community? The speed, it's the speed. People like their reload speeds, they also like their movement speeds. But besides that, a lot of players think that the downsides simply outweigh the upsides, that the armor rating is not high enough to justify the speed penalties. Personally, I mostly disagree, and I believe that something that contributes to this view is loadout variety. Players are generally not much for change and tend to go for a one-size-fits-all type of things, bringing the same armors, weapons, or stratagems to every mission no matter what. And I mean hell, I'm guilty of this too. You're never catching my ass in the bot front without my laser, airstrike, recoil rifle, and FRB, my beloved. We have tools to help mitigate the movement penalties of heavy armor. The jump pack, for example, lets you cover extra distance at 0 stamina expense and has a negligible cooldown. And how fast you can move your legs doesn't matter when you're driving the FRB, my beloved. And even in the cases where you don't have either of those tools, I just don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. But all I'm doing here is talking the talk, and I believe it's time to walk the walk, and see where heavy armor truly works. And for that we'll take a trip around all 3 fronts. For reference, generally I believe that basically each front is for each armor type. Light armor is for Terminids, due to the amount of running away you do with them. Medium armor is for the Illuminate, thanks to the combination of running from the melee horde and ranged units. And heavy armor is for the Automaton, since they are solely focused on shooting and blowing you up. And before we begin, I just want to clarify, all of my testing was done with the vitality booster activated and with at least one teammate. This is because I simply always play the game like this, and realistically you will probably play with the exact same parameters. I won't focus on solo play, because I just don't play solo, and the game is also meant to be played with others. But now that that's done, let's begin. Yeah, let's just get this one out of the way first. Heavy armor is not for the Terminid front. So much so that I was just not even going to test out missions with it. But alas, I decided to do it, and bring along my buddy Mal, because torture is better with friends. At the end of the day, my mind didn't really change. The best way to deal with Terminids is to simply keep moving, and that makes it so that the moments in which you can't use or don't have the jump pack or FRB, my beloved, are more impactful than in the other fronts. Besides that, melee attacks are simply more dangerous than range attacks. dealing way more damage than them, and while yes, heavy armor will let you ignore scavenger bites, tank a couple brute commander slices, and walk off an impaler or charger hit, there's just way too many of them at all times and they all attack in quick succession, therefore tanking their damage is less effective. There is something to be said about eradicate and evacuate missions, since you don't really move a whole lot in those missions, but either way, heavy armor is a no-go for the Terminids. Now, give us a heavy armor exclusive passive that reduces melee damage taken by like fucking, I don't know, 50%, 30%, something like that. And maybe also perhaps deals damage to whoever hits us if it's a melee attack. And I think that shit goes triple platinum. Arrowhead. Please. Now here, the conversation is a little more nuanced. Going in, my hypothesis was that while most enemies are quite hard hitting, and therefore the heavy armor could protect you more, the bowlers will end up tearing it all down. But safe to say, I was pleasantly surprised. The bowlers are generally not as threatening as bugs, they come in fewer numbers, and their melee attacks, while still dangerous when there's a lot of them, you can a lot of times just shrug them off while you do something else. The flesh mobs are still very dangerous, but heavy armor gives you more wiggle room while kiting them, letting you tank the occasional couple of hits that they may sneak in. Then for the rest of the enemies, heavy armor is very nice.
Before I continue, I forgot to mention in the narration that I am using the fortified passive for the Illuminate, so most of my comments will be based on it. Though, still a lot of this still applies if you're not using the fortified passive.
Crescent Overseers, or normal Overseer projectiles, are not as threatening anymore, and their melee attacks give you some extra wiggle room, and in some cases just barely do anything for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why. Elevated Overseers, especially, are a whole lot more bearable with heavy armor, and even when they lock in and hit every shot, you can still walk it off instead of dying on the spot. Heavy units are a little shaky, but there's still some advantages to be taken. Harvesters are the least affected by heavy armor, since their laser just deals an absurd amount of damage, along with their electric attacks. Stingrays, on the other hand, are easy to deal with, as you don't need to spend as much time getting out of the line of fire, since you can just tank the AoE from their shots, so you can get into final position faster to take them down. And most notably, Leviathans are easier to survive thanks to heavy armor, even letting you tank a near direct hit from them, and of course their AoE is overall less effective against you.
Smooth off.
It's pretty. Oh, never mind! And finally, the whole reason I got the idea to make this video. I've been running heavy armor on the bot front ever since I started playing this game, so I can confidently say that this is where heavy armor truly shines, especially thanks to the fortified armor passive with a 50% reduction to explosive damage. This combination is simply incredible on the bot front. The amount of times I get pelted with rocket after rocket after cannon shot after rocket and simply get back up again is kinda crazy. Troopers are completely negligible. With those pitiful lasers they shoot, they barely do any damage to really bother you, besides the occasional Marauder that sneaks behind me and shoots on my back. Devastators are more manageable. Heavy Devastators are still pretty scary up close since they can still completely delete you, but Rocket Devastators basically only exist to ragdoll you. And Berserkers are high damage melee, so yeah, not much change there. See the Terminid front for more information. Scout Striders and the reinforced counterparts are also very manageable, especially the reinforced ones, since you can survive a direct hit from the rockets without much worry. Hulks and gunships don't do much, and really only serve as ragdoll creators. The new War Strider, if you're not too close, will also just ragdoll you, but you're still left with ample room to get away from all of them. And you effectively lower the AoE damage of any cannon, be it stationary, a tank, or a Factory Strider. Of course you will still get completely glassed by a direct hit from them, but they're still overall less effective. And a technique of running Strider Factory Strider while spamming stims to survive his machine gun fire is a whole lot more effective and easier with heavy armor. Honorable mention, you can also just walk over mines and survive, which I think is kinda funny. Overall, thanks to the amount of projectiles that can hit you, and especially the amount of explosives, heavy armor is at its best in the bot front. Especially with the fortified passive, you can just get away with so much. I know something like Siege Ready is very tempting to just take it to the bot front or any other meta passive nowadays, but trust me, that 50% extra explosive resistance and also reduced recoil while crouching for easier headshots against Devastators is incredibly nice. Now I would like to give out some random tips on how you, a real Helldiver, should use heavy armor. As mentioned at the beginning, we have tools to work around the speed penalties of heavy armor. Besides just walking when your stamina gets low so it regens while you move, the jump pack provides extra mobility and allows you to make distance between you and the enemy. Generally, I recommend to just use it on cooldown. The 15-second cooldown passes by really fast, so you don't really have to worry about that. If you bring the stratagem, I would mainly recommend to bring the most generalist support weapon you can find. Personally, I would run grenade launcher on bugs, an HMG on bots, and either the MG43 or grenade launcher for squids. After that, you can pretty much bring whatever tickles your fancy. Then there's the FRB, my beloved, which I won't go into much detail into in this video, because I will eventually make an entire video about the FRB, my beloved. But generally, as long as you keep the car alive, you can pretty much negate the downsides of heavy armor. And since it won't take away your backpack slot, you can run whatever you want alongside it. I would still suggest to bring a support weapon to cover your bases, so you can stand your ground as the proud heavy armor user that you are. And besides the same suggestions I made with the jump pack, thanks to the extra backpack slot, I will also recommend the autocannon for bugs or squids, and the recoil rifle for bots. Also an honorable mention to the ballistic shield, as it will give you an extra layer of protection on top of your armor. Of course, this shines well in the bot front thanks to the amount of bullets flying around, but in the Terminid front, this thing shines a lot, letting you ignore barrages of melee attacks and even the vomit from spewers and battle titans. Heavy armor is underrated, and I wholeheartedly believe more people should give it a whirl. But I will admit, this does not mean it's free of issues. I'm inclined to agree that it should be tankier. I think this would be great. Personally, I would love for it to be possible that a heavy armor with the extra padding passive or the fortified passive is just able to tank a direct hit from an Automaton cannon turret. I think that would be really funny, but that might be a bit too broken. On a more normal suggestion, I think making it so that the heavy armors are all at an armor rating of 200 with the extra padding passive upping it to 250 would be a nice change, and would make heavy armor feel truly heavy. Besides that, as I mentioned previously, a heavy armor passive that reduces melee damage taken I think would be incredible. I like the idea of it also having the Thorns effect I mentioned, damaging any enemy that melees you, but just damage reduction alone would suffice. And I think it would find a great niche against the bugs and the squids. And those are my thoughts on heavy armor. Thank you for watching. I wanna take a moment to thank you all for the reception on the Illuminate video, because what the fuck? I did not think it would bang that hard. Apologies for the mistakes in it, mainly the audio and the FPS of the footage. Hopefully I've done a better work in the sound mixing department of this video. I'll just have to pray, because apparently I don't have a good ear for editing. And the frames from the FPS issue, turns out I'm just fucking stupid and forgot to change the frame rate of the project while editing, so I turned all my 60 FPS footage into 24 FPS. Whoopsies. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope I've swayed your little opinion. And thanks again for watching. Also, almost 1,000 subscribers as well. What the fuck? and again, thanks a lot. But anyways, see you later, fellas.